All right, today on the Paul Harrell program, the Arkansas agricultural industry is projected to lose over $1 billion this year. Farmers this is farmers not just in Arkansas, but across the country, are sounding the alarm, asking the federal government to get involved. And also, if we have time on the show today, we may not, but late night talk show host Jimmy Kimmel is under fire after lying to his audience and claiming the suspect arrested for the assassination of Charlie Kirk was from the right side of the political aisle. And that means now the chairman of the FCC says that he may take action against the American Broadcasting Corporation. The Paul Harrell program starts right now.
The Paul Harrell program.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we really appreciate you being with us as always. We want to tell everybody out there that if you want to support what we're doing, you can go to paultalkshow.substack.com, become a paid subscriber, and we'll send you a copy of Left Wing Will and the Red Pill. We also want you to follow us, like this video wherever you are. Follow us everywhere. And we have a website that's going to be coming soon to make it a lot easier for you to do that. Rob Spencer's my co-host. Rob, welcome, sir.
Paul, it's an honor to be here as always, and it's always great when we have an in-studio guest, so I'm looking forward to talking about the farming situation, really a crisis. As you said, we're at a crisis here, and I have a lot of questions. I grew up in a farming community, as we all did, but I don't know much about the industry, so I've got a lot of questions, especially if you're a layperson and you're watching this program and you don't know much about how the farming industry has to work in coordination with the federal government due to all of the ins and outs that go into farming, such as weather and inflation, all of these things that affect our farmers, and how that affects the price that we pay at the grocery store. All of that's going to be talked about over the course of this hour, including, and then we're going to get to more fallout from the Charlie Kirk situation in terms of like the leftists just really just trying to push the blame. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel is just insufferable, and I think any of us on the right just have, forgotten all about him in terms of like his show. We're not watching that or anything like that. I specifically make sure that when we watch our local KAIT news and then it cuts to his program after, I turn it as off quickly as possible. Even so much so that if I'm in the shower or something and my wife is doing something on her phone or whatever, and it just rolls to him, I'm like, no, we can't give him ratings. And I'm trying to get it off there as quickly as possible there. But anyway, yeah, so we're seeing all of this stuff. We're just seeing, as we've talked about over the last less than a week. I mean, well, I guess it's been about a week ago, right? It's
been a week ago, yeah.
Yeah, so we were going live a week ago, and 15 minutes before we went on air, he was confirmed to be dead. Yeah. And so it was, this just felt like longer than a week, has it not?
It's been a very, very, very long week.
But anyway, let's get to the farming situation.
All right, so in the third chair today, I want to introduce one of my good friends, one of my favorite people on the planet. His name is Stephen Leininger. And Stephen, welcome, sir. Thank you for being on the program.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Appreciate you having me on.
So you are in the agricultural industry. You are here in your personal capacity, but you have knowledge about this. So I first saw this story on social media, in Northeast Arkansas about 2 weeks ago. There was a bunch of farmers that got together, at a church in Brooklyn to basically air their grievances. There were representatives from the Arkansas delegation, the federal delegation were there, representatives of them, to basically say, hey, and so they're sounding the alarm. And my question to you, Stephen, is how serious is this? What are they? Are they just not able to make a profit? Is that generally what the problem is here?
It's extremely important, Paul. The situation is actually dire, and that's not being dramatic. And to set that stage, if you think about the American farmer, he and she are one that don't look for excuses. They're looking to overcome obstacles no matter what they're put up against. And most of these farmers were given 3 days notice that this meeting was going to take place in the midst of harvest. Wow. And you think about planting a seed in the spring of the year, and then you're harvesting it in the early fall to late fall of the year, that's when you're actually getting to reap the reward of everything you've done all season long. And so in the midst of harvest with so many things going on, for over, I think it was 400 to 500 farmers is what they estimated attended this event. They packed the main room and had an overflow space. And so that shows you the urgency where these farmers would get off the combine, stop grain carts, and they made it a priority to have their voices heard.
Yeah, during peak season, all of them showed up.
Yes,
that's a big deal.
Across the state. You know where Brooklyn is, situated in the state, and so for farmers to drive to make that effort, they realize that they need to get their voices heard, especially in front of state representation.
Well, speaking of this time of the year, I can tell you as a person who again grew up in a farming community, not a farmer, not a son of a farmer. My dad worked in a factory, but the farmers' sons who went to school with me, this is the time of the year these kids are dragging themselves in there at 7:45 a.m. because they were on a combine till midnight, and because it's all hands on deck. And so these farmers are doing everything that they can to meet the needs of the United States and really the world, And so I agree. It's definitely the time where they're the busiest. And so we're having this emergency meeting. And for that many people to show up, it just really goes to show how dire the situation is.
Yeah. So what are some of the estimates, Stephen, in terms of, we're talking about farmers going under essentially. So how many farms potentially could go under if the federal government doesn't step in and do something here?
So the estimates that I've heard and that's being talked about is 1/3. That's
wow. 30%.
30%, and you're talking about, especially if you're, whether you're a right wing or just conservative, wherever you put yourself in the political spectrum. You think about what we all want as far as like the American dream is you want these like small family owned farms.
Sure.
Like, and so when these farms go under, you think about corporations, somebody that's coming in to, have something to gain will come in and buy that land because there's only so much land. And when it goes up for sale, because a farmer can't pay his note, then somebody's going to profit off of it. And so it's these massive corporations who don't care about the Americans. They just care about turning this profit versus a farmer. And he's a fourth generation farmer who's literally just trying to feed his family and keep the wheels on this thing. And, that's the kind of person you want driving that combine, not some corporate entity here. So that tends to be what happens when the bigger the company. But, not to get too conspiratorial, but I've been following the reports about Bill Gates buying up land, and the idea that somebody like that, who is just a computer engineer.
Well, he wants to get rid of cows.
Is now going to, potentially have a say in America's food supply. I think I'll pass on that, or any other Bill Gates that remind me of real life world James Bond villains. So on that front, I don't want 1/3 of America's farmers to go under. So
can you speak, just sort of break it down for someone that's a layperson who doesn't really understand, just the basics of how the federal government has to be in coordination with these farmers, and just really speak to what is the overall problem?
Yeah. So,
and I guess you could start at the big beautiful bill, right? Because we all told, most people may think, Stephen, that farmers were taken care of in the big beautiful bill, right? Is that true?
Well, yeah, and so I'll have to put a disclaimer out there. I'm not some ag economist, but my whole point of wanting to come on the show was to get the American farmers' message out here that, especially in Arkansas, the state that I live and pay taxes in, that they are in dire need. I'll absolutely do my best to explain it from my perspective, like what I understand about it. And so, let's just think about like basic economics, supply and demand, right? Like let's start very basic level. If a farmer goes and, he's buying inputs, seed, fertilizer, chemical, all the things that he would need in order to raise a crop. And then when he goes to sell that crop, if he sells his crop for more than what the inputs cost to produce that crop, then now he's profitable, right? But in order to be profitable, you have to make a sale. And so if he can't make a sale, then there's no market. And so I was talking with one of my coworkers this morning. Even we were just talking about me coming on the show, and he's a local sales rep in the northeast part of the state here. And he said that he's got about 80% of his customers still have rice in their grain bins from last year. So that lets you know that there is no market. Nobody is wanting to buy U.S. rice. And so if you think about just America and the great things that we have in this country, we do live at a higher cost of living than most of the world, right? We enjoy many great things. And so the cost and the price for us to produce something is going to be more than maybe what like a third world country could produce something. But where we really succeed and find our strive is in our yields. We have technology, we have advancements, and so we have this ability to produce large yields. And when we have a surplus, then we've taken care of our country and we can now sell it to other countries.
When you're talking about yields, Stephen, you're saying that per acre, where our crops are yielding more returns than someone with less technology who is not able to, I don't want to use the word manipulate, but to enhance the amount of return from it.
Exactly.
Biomass.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so you're seeing the world catch up. So America is not the only one who can produce high yielding crops now. And so and Paul,
is that the only reason that they don't want to buy our rice? I mean, is there another reason? Is there a quality when you have a seed that
cost maybe
is increasing the yield, right? And I don't know about the technology behind seed. I know nothing. But if you have a situation where, hey, we've got this seed, it's doing really good, it gives us a lot of rice, but does the quality of that rice suffer at all, or can that quality suffer?
Yeah, so you've got, and this is, we won't go too deep on this rabbit trail, but when you think about like the rice market, you've got hybrid rice is probably a pretty popular rice that you hear talked about, or that's planted in this state, and in Louisiana, Mississippi, Central Valley, California as well. And then there's varieties. So like the University of Arkansas, their seed breeding program produces Ozark is a variety that the university has come out with. So that is a non-hybrid, or some would call it like an inbred rice variety. And so its quality is usually going to be higher. So rice is not just judged on its yield basis, so the amount of grain produced on an acre basis. It's also graded for its milling, and so that could be the chalkiness of the rice, or the clarity of it, or how many cracks are in it, and how many broken pieces and fragments are. And so a consumer is not going to buy rice that has been ground up when they're looking for a bag of rice. I mean, they're wanting whole kernel rice, and they don't want something that's got a bunch of fragments in it. They want the whole kernel rice. And so for a variety of reasons, I mean, again, we won't get too deep into it, a lot of our rice market has shifted to hybrid rice production. And so that's what the majority of the rice acres in this state, and then many of the rice producing belt of the United States, is hybrid rice. And so we do have a quality issue. It's not as good as like our traditional varieties, like in the 80s and 90s, a lot of like Lacasse, a lot of the older varieties were a lot more popular and the quality was better.
Wow.
What do you think that the administration, President Trump, the Congress, what can they do right now that would alleviate the concerns for 2026, right? Because we're talking about it right now, but it's going to rear its head in 2026, right?
I think it's going to rear its head this year. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. So again, and it's always interesting how these conversations unpack themselves, right? So I think if we take a step back to 2024, and you think about what I told you just a minute ago about like one of our sales reps having 80% of his customers with 2024 rice still in the grain bins, nowhere to sell that rice. And so if they haven't been able to sell that rice, and you think about the world has only gotten more expensive. I mean, we all see it reflected in our daily lives, and so they don't have cash flow on the acre, and so that's the predicament that they're in. Is just this increasing debt. And when you have increasing debt, you have to start. A lot of these farmers have worked their entire lives to gain some type of equity, and so what you're seeing on the scale now is, let's take the example of like a family farm that has maybe worked for many generations to acquire equity in their land. They own their land. They're no longer making a payment on their land. So this year, what you're seeing is they're having to offer that up as collateral. They're having to take out money against that in
essentially
order
a line of credit against that land,
wiping out years of gain, though.
Yeah.
Like you're literally taking 10 steps backwards.
Absolutely.
Like you're going back a generation. It might have taken a generation to get all the land paid for.
Yes, and so that's what's insane. And you think about, and maybe y'all can help me come up with what you would call this. Like, just I guess the gratitude that I have for a farmer. You think about this farming family that is willing to do that, because it's not uncommon like that. They are putting their land up in order to have this line of credit. It's just so they can keep farming for that way of life. Yeah. They're still wanting to have that way of life bad enough that it's like, well, hey, we'll put the family farm up and we'll see if we can get enough help. And most of the time, I think ag is cyclical. Okay, I've been told that my entire life, and so most farmers know that there's going to be ups and downs. I mean, if you were to look at like the profit of ag across time, you would see all these ups and downs, and most of the time you can weather 2-3 bad years, but then at some point profit's going to start to return, and you'll start to be able to make enough money, you can put enough back that you weather the bad times. But what's happened is just these increase of or what it takes in order to produce the crop, and not having a market to be able to sell the crop. They're not cash flowing, and that's what's kind of leading to this entire issue.
Well, and it also goes back to just obviously outside of farming as well, but it's just an issue that President Trump has talked about, that you can produce this so much more inexpensively in other countries because we are the cream of the crop, we're the top of the top, everything. Like we the highest cost of living. Do we have the highest cost of living, for any civilized nation? I don't know.
I mean, it certainly feels like
we've got to be toward the top. But anyway, if you're a country that can produce this rice and you can send it into the United States and sell it more inexpensively than John Smith, who's been a farmer for 50 years over here, if you can produce it more inexpensively, because John Smith is paying United States prices, he's not paying this foreign country price here. And so I'm wondering, what specifically do you think, like, what really needs to happen here? Like, what do you think from your experience, what would solve the problem, or at least solve this problem right now? Is there anything that can be done?
Yes. So what they need is emergency funding. So there is part of the big beautiful bill will take effect in 2026 by November. Well, that's
more than a year from now.
That's going to be too late, right? Yeah. And so what they need is, because they're dealing with a last year's problem. We'll just call it a last year's problem. It's been
well, if you've got stuff from 2024 that's still sitting in your grain bins, this is a last year problem.
Yes, and so then you can only roll debt so far, and once the family farm grounds up, what's left to put up, right? And so what they need now is immediate relief, and farmers don't want to live off of welfare. They don't want to live off of handouts. Mm-hmm. What they want is a market. They want to be able to, because they are sweating, bleeding.
Yeah.
They're putting their entire life on the line when they're out there producing these crops, and all they want is a fair chance to be able to, for all their hard work, right? To be able to sell it and get a profit. And that's what they're asking for is we also need a new market, because a Band-Aid on a bullet hole is not going to solve the issue. I mean, you need real trauma care at that point. And so what we need is we need some type of, ad hoc relief that would, be immediate, like you take like John Deere financing as an example. A lot of those terms are going to be due in November. So like they're like if a farmer has taken out terms on through John Deere financing, they're going to have to come up with that money and by November. And so they need cash flow immediately in order to make it to the benefits of the big beautiful bill.
So the big beautiful bill is good. Just doesn't go into effect
it's just
fast
too late.
enough. It's too late. There's a third of them maybe not even going to have their jobs. You said we need markets. We got to have markets. So tell me about tariffs. How are tariffs affecting this? Are the tariffs at play here? And then also tell me about just markets in general in terms of, you were telling me off air that the price of corn is the same price that it was in like decades ago.
Yeah. So, you take corn today, it's somewhere around $3.80 a bushel. And, corn in 1970 was around the same price. And
that's insane to me.
You think about the price of a pickup truck today, maybe a decent truck's maybe $55,000, maybe $65,000. Back then it was maybe, $10,000 if that. The price of a combine. I mean, it's $1 million now to get a brand new combine. Back then it was thousands compared to $1 million.
Yeah.
And so the American farmer is experiencing the increase of input prices, but not seeing that reflected in what he can get for his crop. And so that's what I was telling you, Paul, is like, in the 1970s when corn is, around that $3.80 a bushel mark, today yield has increased. So how much corn they can produce on the acre has increased, 2.5 times. So that's good. Like if it was, 70 bushel corn back then, they're making more corn now. And so the hope would be, okay, well, if we're making, bigger yields, more corn, it kind of will come out in the wash. But what they're paying for it now is 9x what they were paying for inputs in the 1970s. So you've got a 2.5x, increase in yield, but 9x increase in the price of inputs and doing business.
Yeah.
Wow. So what about the tariffs, though? I mean, have the tariffs. So this is just my perspective on the tariffs. Like, obviously there is going to be pain in certain industries. We're told it's going to be short-term pain. Okay. Donald Trump, in my opinion, is trying to totally revolutionize how we fund our government with tariffs, right? He's even floated getting rid of the IRS as a result of if the tariffs work. But I imagine that the tariffs have got to be affecting this in the short term at the least. Is that true?
No, I think that they are affecting it. I talked with another coworker of mine, and his opinion was that the tariffs aren't so much at play here as it is just the need of a market. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And he was like, well, the tariff is what it is, but he said if there is a true demand, regardless of a tariff, they would buy American crops. So even though it might cost them more, if they had to come and buy our grain, then at that point the tariff's kind of irrelevant, right? Because you've got to eat.
Because the price is what the price is.
The price is what the
you're
price
hungry.
is.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so that was kind of his take on it, and I thought that was interesting because you do hear a lot about tariffs, and I'm sure, no doubt they're playing some part in it, but when I kind of stood back and thought about that, I was like, well, that's really interesting.
Well, tell me I don't know how much I don't know how much rice, I don't know how much corn, I don't know how much wheat that soybeans, all of those things, all of these, cotton, everything. Cotton is huge around here as well. Like, I don't know how much the United States produces versus how much it consumes in an entire year. Like, I don't know what that percentage is, but let's just say that our production level is over our consuming level.
It is.
Okay. Well, then why the hell are we taking any rice from a different country? Why are we taking any wheat from a different country? I don't understand that. Like, you can have, regardless of the tariffs that you want to implement on these countries, like, why is it even allowed? I guess you want to say, well, there's a free market economy and all of that stuff, but it just seems to me like we're shooting ourselves in the foot by doing this. You're allowing a country to put our people out of business. I will never understand that. I'm not talking about a T-shirt manufacturer or somebody that manufactures, this little fidget spinner that's, these things that aren't needed. I guess what I'm trying to say. I mean, we need shirts.
Yeah, our food supply is, valuable.
That's a basic human need. We got to eat. Right. And so I'm like, if our farmers are producing what we need, why are we taking it from other countries? And the only thing that I can ever trace that back to is, well, this company has offered this donation to this senator who has put this into the bill.
You're getting warmer.
So that all this, like, every solution to every problem, it just seems, and unfortunately, is just follow the money. Follow the money, rather than, and we're going to watch this video in just a second, but we're going to see the actual concerns of our farmers that are in this community. Arkansas is a huge state for production of, I know are we the leader in the United States of rice?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so Arkansas is the leader of rice. I can't fathom us not being up there on cotton because we've got so much cotton. I don't know. You would know in terms of all this
we're
other
up there
stuff.
with cotton as well.
Yeah, and so Arkansas is hugely affected, but it affects the entire United States, and that's what we're kind of talking about here. I just don't understand it.
That's part of the bigger story too. That we're calling it like our lay person. Arkansas is still largely rural, right? Like I saw something the other day. I think Arkansas has like 48% farmland. It was a map of farmland distribution across the United States.
Oh, you can see that. Fly over it and you'll see it.
And so like there's a lot of rural America. So like you go through Jonesboro, we're sitting right now. I mean, is like what 75,000 people, almost 80,000. I mean, it's a large populace, but not far from here, you get into like a couple hundred people, and there are cities in Arkansas that have got like 80. And so, but that's where it's just encompassed by farmland. And so all those grocery stores that sell any type of snacks, Gatorade, whatever it might be that farmers and their local people are coming in there and buying, that's who's going to start suffering. So like there might be a local deli or grill that is fixing hamburgers and like, yes, we have duck hunting in this state, and that is big for this state. That also supports our rural economies, but farming is here year round, where out of state duck hunters are here for 60 days.
Sure.
And so it's not just the farmers. I mean, it's Arkansas as a whole, because it's the ripple effect, right?
Yeah.
Or the butterfly.
Well, a part of that ripple effect would also be, I would imagine, banks that have on their balance sheets, they're the ones that have given the farmers the loans. And so if nothing happens, and you've got a bank that has too much ag loan, I mean, aren't there banks that are specifically
ag lenders?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's another problem.
And there are banks in rural America that is their predominant business, is that they're doing.
If they don't have
farmers,
they're out of business.
They're literally out of business. So it's not just, and that's what. So the farmer's sounding the alarm because he's needing help, but the rest of us need to sound the alarm too, because we're dependent on the farmer, because it all starts at the farm gate. And so you ask starting out like, well, what needs to happen? Well, something needs to happen quick, because if the farmer's in trouble, the rest of us are in trouble.
Yeah, it sounds like, and I know we're trying to get into this video, but it sounds like to me that President Trump needs to be on his radar if it's not already, and he needs to implement some sort of emergency relief. Then we need to continue to work with the tariffs situation and the just really trade deals in general, like just saying, hey, country, yes, you can still send your this, and this in here, but you got to buy this much rice, but you got to buy this much wheat. You got to buy this much from our farmers And that way, it goes to your point, we've got to make sure that there's a buyer. We've got to make sure that there's a market.
We've referenced this video a few times, so let's just go ahead
do it.
and pump it in. This is from the local ABC affiliate, KAIT, and they are interviewing some farmers that turned out about 2 weeks ago to basically express their grievances and begging the government to step in and do something.
Would like to see somebody help us get our markets back. We need our exports, and we just need to be paid for what we do, and that's not happening, and we're in real trouble.
But that is not the only issue. King's wife, Melissa King, and farmer in Biggers, Arkansas, Scott Brown, said they are struggling to afford the cost that is needed just to take care of the farm.
The prices that we're getting now are prices like they were when we were children, and what it costs for us to farm is astronomical now. I mean, the price of a combine when we were kids was, in the 20,000s, and now it's 100,000.
I farm 800 acres by myself. I can't afford any help. I farm with paid-for equipment. All my tractors are 50 years old, and I can't hardly make this deal work. How's the guys farming 5 and 10,000 with 20 hands and $1 million combines and $1 million drills going to make it work?
But for Brown, there is something that rounds out all the issues that they are facing: the tariffs.
I think the tariffs are the ice cream on the cake of a perfect storm. When you try to sell a product, okay, U.S. soybeans leaving New Orleans without the tariff to China are cheaper than Brazilian soybeans at the current market. But when you put the tariff on top of them, Brazilian beans are cheaper.
So how can this be fixed?
In the short term, they have no choice but to mail us a check. I don't know a farmer that likes the check program. Nobody wants to take taxpayer dollars, but nobody wants to go broke. Nobody wants to lose everything. Long term, we have to have options, markets, and places to sell our product.
Interesting. It's very much echoing a lot of what you said here, Stephen, about the markets and
So let's get into Brazil, okay?
Okay.
So this will be something that I think I will find really interesting. There's this coalition. It's called BRICS, is like the acronym.
Yeah.
And so you can Google that. But it's
Brazil, Russia, India,
China,
South Africa.
and South Africa, yes. And so, basically it's, in agreement of these up and coming, economies that they can, source grain in and amongst themselves. And if they can do that and not buy U.S. grain, that's good on them. That's their goal.
Saves them money, and plus they're sticking it to the man.
Yep. And so, and you think about Brazil. I mean, Brazil is our largest competitor when it comes to soybean. Our seasons are opposite each other too. When we're planting, they're harvesting. When we're harvesting, they're planting. And so usually our agricultural economists can kind of look at, how many, metric tons of beans did Brazil produce? And we can try to, at our planting, if you're going to, and that's a good thing about, especially in Arkansas, we can kind of shift, what's going to be our crop diversification? Do we need to plant more rice, maybe more corn, depending on that market? Well, so not that many years ago, a lot of the Brazilian soybeans would just rot because they did not have the infrastructure to store grain, to move grain, and to get it to other countries that wanted to buy it. And so China has financed infrastructure in Brazil. They've built roads, they've built bridges, they have built grain storage facilities. Wow. And so they've made these major investments in Brazil in order to help themselves out. And so that just kind of gives you a little bit more insight into what's going on behind the scene, is that, China, you think about in Trump's first administration, you would kind of get these surprise messages, or I'd get them through the Delta Farm Press. You get a notification. It was like, oh, China's coming in and buying 200 metric tons of U.S. soybeans, and you'd see the market respond to that, and so that was a good day. But it was, China having to buy because they were needing to. And so that's what I was saying, no doubt, the tariffs, my personal opinion is in the long run, I believe this administration can get us a market, and that is part of the ask. So we've got to have a market. But are they having an effect right now? Yeah, they're definitely having an effect. I mean,
well, I don't think that any person that's rational, that looks at it objectively, would say anything other than the fact that China has declared economic war on the United States. They have done this for years and years and years because as the United States is floundering, they are thriving in their minds. I don't know if that if that's actual, but what they're doing is trying to. I get it. They're trying to benefit their country as best that they can, to put themselves in the best position as possible. However, as we see, it is hurting our American farmers.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess you could probably make the argument that, just the formation of BRICS, which, by the way, the reason they formed is not just to necessarily attack the American farmer. It's really just to attack the Western financial system, which has many instances of corruption that are out there, and they don't necessarily like that, and that's a whole nother discussion. But it seems like there's been this tit for tat. It kind of cooled off during the Otto Penn administration with Biden, right? But Trump then picks it back up. But in the meantime, sounds like to me in the last 4 years of Biden, China's gone into Brazil and has invested all this money. Now you've got the grain storage, and so now we don't have to buy to the U.S. So then Trump gets back into office and he says, "Okay, tariffs back on," and really starts. So this we're in basically a trade war.
Yeah,
I mean,
Biden,
this is a trade
Biden was
war.
asleep at the wheel in many ways, and many ways other. We all know that. We all understand that the dude was not in charge, and the people that were in charge, did they give any sort of consideration whatsoever to our American farmers? No, they didn't care about that because the American farmer in the rural areas are not their ideal voters. Their voters are in this metropolitan area. And as we 100% know, that the politicians, whether they're on the right or the left, they care more about votes than they care about anything. And so it's really, and I think at this point in Trump's second term, that is the best case scenario for farmers. Although we've got this huge hurdle, is that is he going to care about the votes, or is he going to care about doing the right thing for farmers? And he talks about it all the time. I love my farmers. I love the farmers. Love the farmers. Well, you need to show how much you love them, sir.
Yeah,
you need to show them.
Steve, I'll let you respond, but the Stuttgart Daily Leader reporting yesterday, or 2 days ago, rather. Today's the 17th. This was on the 15th that Senator John Bozeman is pushing White House and Congress for farm relief crisis. So,
good.
And he's, I believe, the head of the Senate Agricultural Committee, I believe, or he's certainly on the committee if he's not the chair. So, I mean, I think the word is getting out. But a reason I want to do this show, Stephen, is just because I wanted people to know the plight. I mean, not just in Arkansas. I know I'm sure in Mississippi, Louisiana, this is going on nationwide, or in multiple states at least.
We're struggling, man. We're struggling, in many ways. The Federal Reserve lowered interest rates today, which will help the housing market, which is what I deal with every day. But you see it, man. You see the effects of poor leadership over the past 4 years when it wasn't something that could just instantly be corrected. You knew that the damage had been done over time, and therefore we've got grain bins, 80% of them sitting from last year. And
that's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah, me either.
Until Stephen told us.
Me either. And so, what that will fall on Trump, because people will say, well, this is Trump's fault and all of that stuff, when he's just like, literally, I'm trying to pick up the mess here. I'm trying to triage this situation. And how do I do that? But at the same time, we've seen what the farmers need. We're seeing it because the farmers are telling us. And if we are just listening to the people who are in the trenches and saying, hey, if you want food from American farmers, this is what's going to happen. Otherwise, let this Chinese conglomerate come in here, buy all of this American farmland, put all of these American farmers out of business, and then see what your prices are in about 10 years. See what they are then. And then we're going to really, really cry foul when we only have ourselves to blame. The time to fix the problem is now. I don't want to sound like an ad here, but the time to fix the problem is now. We are surrounded by farmland. The farmers are telling us what they need. I really hope the government will act.
What do you think, Stephen?
Yeah, no, I was trying to get the quote in my head, and y'all are way more intellectual than I am, so maybe it'll come to y'all. But it's some quote about like fighting a war on an empty belly, like that doesn't go well. And so you think about like just everything that's going on in the world in today's age, and you don't know like what's going to happen. But if you are at least well fed, then you can do a lot of things. You can think, you can fight, you can go about your day-to-day business. But if you're hungry, that's when everything starts to unravel.
Well, my best friend, who is the smartest person that I know, he's a prosecutor. He's just ridiculously smart. He was moving from one of his houses into another house, and I said, hey, I'll be over there in a couple hours to help you, as soon as I get off work. And I go over there, and he's got this U-Haul. And if you've seen the U-Haul trucks, you pull them out, the ramp. You pull the ramp out, and then you take it out and put it up on the ledge. Okay. He was moving his entire house with just pulling the ramp out, so he had this drop. Okay. And I went over there and I just said, dang, buddy, you're the smartest person I know, but what are you doing here? And he had already unloaded his refrigerator, his washer and dryer.
Strong fella.
Yeah, he had a furniture dolly, but still he was dealing with this, 8-inch drop here, whatever it was. And he said, yeah, man, I don't know what I was thinking. I said, when's the last time you ate? And he said, last night. Just to your point, the smartest person that I know, his brain was not working enough to put the ramp up in the proper place because he hadn't had food in his belly. That's the kind of thing that we're dealing with here. But also, we're talking about the basic need, as we've talked about, of food, where, how many people are going to bed hungry in this country right now? And is there something that can be done? Excuse me, if you've got a bunch of rice just sitting in the bins not being used,
Yeah, that is interesting.
What could something to be done here to cure hunger? Like the government, in addition to giving some relief to these farmers, is there a way that we can buy this as part of a government assistance program as well?
Well, that all goes. This is a good topic about food stamps and how the United States Department of Agriculture 80%.
Yeah.
80% of it's for food stamps.
Mm-hmm.
And when it started out, that's not what the USDA was about.
Sure.
And so those food stamps, you can't go buy rice with food stamps in a grain storage bin. That's a year old.
Well,
but the grocery stores sure are happy when the food stamp bill gets passed because
sure.
Especially like a company like Walmart, they stand to gain $1 billion in profits from it.
Yeah,
Well,
and I think. Oh, go ahead. I'll
No,
let you
no,
finish
go
your
ahead.
thought. I was just
Say
going to say that just to, I guess, bring a little bit more awareness or to help fill in maybe some of the cracks here. The current farm bill, or we are currently working on a farm bill from 2018, and so the part of the big beautiful bill is having like an updated farm bill. So that'll go into effect in 2026. But a lot of the benchmarks are like part of like the safety nets, like the price, the reference prices for what farmers would get paid on. So an example might be something like like if rice is $4.50 per bushel, like now it'll be like $7 and some change. And so
you get so if the price is at this level, the benchmarks as written in 2012, right?
Yep.
Okay. So that benchmark states you get this much as if the price was that much per year.
Hang on 1 second.
Right.
Because I don't know if you covered this. We might have covered this off air, but are you saying that the benchmarks haven't been changed or updated since 2012?
Yep. Since 2012.
Well, that seems like the cost of everything has gone sky high since 2012. Like, that's unsustainable.
At the very least, it should have been updated in 2022, something around there after post-COVID life.
Kept getting kicked. And so that's where. So finally, we're getting that addressed. That's what everybody, the agriculture community was screaming, like, we need a new farm bill, like, because that allows time and space to address that. It's like we need these benchmarks to be updated because a lot has changed in the world. I mean, think about that. In 2018, when the last farm bill was passed, 2 years later was COVID,
Yeah.
And we all lived through COVID and the years that followed that. I mean, so much has changed in the world. And so the reason I bring that up is because I don't know if that was clear earlier. I gave the example about, 1970s and the price of corn and, maybe what a combine or pickup truck costs and what the price of corn is today and what those associated costs are. But yeah, so if you don't have a safety net there, because again, the farmer doesn't get to control what he sells the bushel of corn for. Mm-hmm. It's an open market. And so, he has to, and I've heard a lot of people say this, he's the only, business that, buys, whatever his inputs are at whatever somebody wants to sell them at, and then yet he sells it on just whatever the market will bear. He doesn't get to say, well, hey, you know what, really and truly, I need $8 for this bushel of corn.
Sure.
That's not up to him.
Yeah. So it's a great point because, as a real estate agent, I determine what my commission is if I go, now I've got, that's a negotiation, but I go in and I negotiate with my seller and we talk about the commission, basically what I'm willing to work for. So a farmer does not get to determine what they pay, nor do they get to determine what they are paid. And that, my friends, is why there is farm relief. If you are sitting there saying, well, just let the farmers go, if they can't make a living, all of that stuff, that right there, that simple equation, they don't get to determine what they pay and they don't get to determine how much they make. Right there determines why this is the deciding factor on why they need relief.
Mic drop. There it
Mike
is.
dropped it there.
There
Okay.
it is. Yeah.
Well, it's just common sense, and so I hope that some relief comes because obviously the big beautiful bill will help, but it's too late, as you said. To your point,
It's got to get done sooner.
Yeah,
We got to do something. What, by November? You think? I mean, that's
Yeah, so I think there was some farmers that I guess collectively, and I don't know, who all was coming up with it, but if they could get it by November, that would be great. But they know how government works and that it's slow, and
Sure.
they're like, a drop dead month would be February.
yeah,
And even though there are going to be notes that come due before then, but it's like, hey, we'll.
as long as the legislation is there, the banks will
Yeah.
probably be like, we know it's coming.
Well, President Trump talking about this tariff money, and he's wanting to give it back directly to the American people, in terms of checks. And they're saying if he gave every bit of it back, that each American might make up to $10,000. But I would just say this: why don't you start with what the farmers need?
Yeah, I think they need a lot more than 10 grand.
Well, but I'm just saying, give the farmers what they need, and then you can talk about what you want to do with the rest of it. And I've got it. I believe that the debt should be paid down, but as Trump just said, instead of giving this money back to Congress, who's just going to waste it, give it to the people who actually will use it. And he knows that if that money were to go directly to the citizens, that it's going to stimulate the economy more than just about anything. People will be buying.
Yeah, I mean, here's the secret, right? It's monopoly money. I mean, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of, we can't give the farmers what they need in this instance, I mean, I know that sounds totally anti-conservative, free market, whatever. But I mean, it just is what it is. Like, they turn the printing press on. They literally create money digitally all the time and destroy money digitally all the time.
Yeah.
It's really not difficult. You have to have the political will, but Elon Musk said he found magic money machines within the government, like 7 of them, where they can literally just create money and send it to anybody, any account in the world.
Yeah.
So, I mean, assuming that those accounts are true, which I believe they are, come on, this really shouldn't be hard. There's a clear need.
Yeah.
Get something done.
So, everyone talks about, tax the billionaires and make them pay their fair share. I saw this thing. It was a video from the older millennial, and he just said, all right, so basically if you took all of Elon Musk and all the 100 and something billionaires that are in the United States, if you took all of their wealth, now obviously they don't have, this is not liquid money. Elon Musk does not have $400 billion of liquid money, which means it's just sitting there in the account. Like, he's worth that. But let's just say that it is liquid money. He could write a check for $400 billion. If you took all of their wealth, combined it, that it would run the United States for 8 months. Less than a year. That's how much money we spend as a government here in the United States. And how much money are we wasting? We're buying $9,000 hammers. How many of these damn supports that we've got? Support
USAID. Remember all that
Oh
money
my
that was
gosh,
being
it was a
wasted?
slush
Billions
fund.
of dollars.
Slush fund. And you see this in Gavin Newsom over there in California, who is trying to seize that Palisade land, which we all knew was coming because he wants to build low-income housing there. And you're like, okay, well, you know what's going to happen with that. You're going to take $200 billion and you're going to build some housing, but how many people are becoming millionaires, including Gavin Newsom, after that happens? You're taking that land, and you're just like, well, no, we're not really seizing it. Well, if you won't give them a building permit, then you're seizing that land. We're seeing that. We saw that in Hawaii, right? And now we're seeing it here, and that's what's going to... We're going to see the next election come up.
You really bring up a great point.
Yeah.
About taking land that has been in people's possession for generations.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw that in Hawaii. You saw that in L.A.
And someone could...
that could happen across the South.
Right. And someone could argue that that's exactly what they're trying to do by delaying aid for these farmers. Now, I don't believe that Trump would do that, but at the same time, he's the president of the United States. He is not the Ayatollah here. He doesn't have the supreme power. We work within the limits of a government here. So we're seeing that stuff happen on a daily basis, and it's all about the money. Do you care about the citizens or not? Do you care about Americans or not? No one is as hardworking as the American farmer. We've seen it from 6 a.m. to 1 a.m. and they go home, and you would like to say, well, they've got 5 hours to sleep. Are they actually sleeping, or are they sitting there worrying?
Yeah.
Are they sleeping, or are they laying there praying? You know, when is the relief going to happen?
It's a national security issue, honestly.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Is that food security is national security. You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Well,
it is. I mean, you have to be able to feed yourself, within the confines of your own borders, or you're not a country. And that's really in many regards, this like resurgence of nationalism, where Trump says, "Look, if we don't have a safe country, then we're not really a country. If you don't have a border, you're not really a country. If you can't make all your military equipment with the resources, we don't need China making our steel for us for our tanks."
Yeah.
Right? Or planes or whatever. It's the same concept. We need to be able to feed ourselves.
Yeah, and you think about, too, go back to, we were talking about China paying. You think they just did that out of the goodness of their heart?
No.
You think, we're just going to invest millions of dollars in Brazilian infrastructure? Like, that comes at, there's no strings attached to that?
No, of course not. There's always strings attached when it comes to China. It's economic warfare. It is war against the United States, because if they can do something that weakens the United States, it strengthens their position, at least in their mind. And probably they're correct about that.
Okay, so February is like the drop dead date.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But maybe they could get it by maybe Christmas will come early. Maybe they get it in November, or maybe they get it in December.
So what can our people do? Anybody that's watching this show, what can you do? I think you need to find out who your representatives are in your area.
Yep.
And I think it's going to have to be bigger than statewide, because we've got farmers in every state, and they're all probably dealing with the exact same issue.
Yep. Oh, yeah. The price, whatever corn is trading for, that's not just in Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
That's everywhere.
And a truck costs basically the same thing in Arkansas as that it does in Mississippi or Louisiana. So to your input, the inputs are up on everybody. They've increased on everybody.
Yep. So I think that they need to contact, for us, we've got 6 members of Congress in our area. We've got two senators. We've got 4 members of the House. And I think we need to be contacting them. We need to be, the Rick Crawfords of the world, and all of Tom Cotton's, all of the people who are in our state here in the Arkansas. But if you're listening in this and you're in Idaho, you're in Mississippi, you're in Georgia, contact your representatives here and let them know that the farming crisis is going to affect us all. And if we're putting out of business American farmers, what that does is allows for foreign investment, and foreign investment in the most crucial thing that we have, American farmers. If foreigners become our American farmers, there is no world where that is going to be a positive thing for our children and their children.
Yeah, and I've seen the power that contacting your local representatives has. Like, I don't know if y'all paid much attention to it, but maybe a few months ago there was a public land sales. Did y'all ever catch wind of that?
I didn't see it.
So yeah, and so like there was I guess a representative. I want to say it was from Utah. I've got all the notes written at my house. Like, I've slept since then, and we actually won that battle. So the specifics elude me, but the point is that public lands were up for sale.
Are you talking about the Bureau of Land Management and the Clive and Bundy thing? Is that what you're talking about?
No,
okay.
I'd have to.
No, you're talking about a sale. It was an actual
Yeah, it was
sale.
an actual sale.
Okay.
And so what I saw so like, I'm an avid outdoorsman. I love to hunt, fish. And so, yeah, like, I live in Arkansas. There was no Arkansas lands that were in jeopardy. They were not in peril. But, like, I mean, I've started, buying preference points to go on hunts, out west. And so there were some of these lands that were up, and it was for, like, economic housing, like to do, like, developments and things like that. And so what I saw was, like, on social media, all of these, outdoorsmen, hunters, anglers, and even just, like, non-consumptive, users, like people that just enjoy, walking, hiking, things like that, banded together, contacted their local representatives to make their voice heard, so that whoever their representative was that was going to Congress and said, hey, vote no to this, the sale of public lands. Like, and it was an overwhelming.
That was Mike Lee. I think
it was
Senator
Mike Lee.
Senator
I
Mike
heard something
Lee.
about that.
Yeah, he
That's
took a
right.
lot of heat for that, and people were like, "Why? What are you doing this?"
And
Mike?
it came out of nowhere too. Like, he was trying to slide it in, and it caught way more fire across this country. And you think about, like, what is the number of, like, sportsmen and women? I don't know what the stat is, but it's not a large group. I mean, you hear that, like, a lot of people are advocating for more sportsmen and women, and so anyway, it was just astounding how there was, like, this call to arms of, like, contact your local representatives and make it known that what you want is, Mike Lee, like, you tell them, like, to vote no. Like, we do not want this to be a part of any legislation that comes forward. And it got shut down. It got shut down in a big way. And so, that's what we need.
And that's not a surprise, because you just say that there may not be a lot of, in terms of percentage of the population of avid sportsmen and women who are, hunters and fishermen and all of that stuff. But it's an active group,
very active,
and it's a vocal group.
Don't kick that ant man.
Yeah. So I've been doing research because I wanted to purchase a 12 gauge shotgun for home defense, and I've just been really kind of going down this rabbit hole and talking about this, because I have a handgun, but I don't own any sort of, like, long barrel guns. I don't own a rifle or a shotgun, and so I was kind of going down this, and I started watching these videos. And I placed my order today. I ordered a Beretta A300 Ultima Patrol. Okay, so this thing is, like, really cool, and I ordered the light for it and the sights and all of that stuff. I wanted something really cool for home. I started watching videos on it, and I was like, okay, well, that's got 270,000 views. This one's got 500,000 views over here. This one has all these, and I was just like,
yeah, I know where you're going.
These people are out there. They're active. These avid sportsmen and gun owners and hunters and all of that stuff, they are active on all of these social media. That is a powerful sector
it is.
of our electorate.
And, I mean, tying in, like, Charlie Kirk with that, like, he was the voice for the people that were not speaking, but they were watching.
They were watching.
Yep. All those views that you're talking about.
Yep.
They're there and they're seeing it, and you're just starting to hear more from them.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, it's always been told to me, like, in Arkansas alone, opening day of Modern Gun at 5 a.m. in the trees, there's like 300,000 Arkansans trained to use high-powered rifles in the trees.
So I just came back. Like, I had a meeting in Van Buren, Missouri, and just came back from it. So yesterday, like, I was hanging out, like, after the meeting, just having some soft time with some of the guys I work with, and we're just on the banks of the Current River, and it was opening day of hog-nose sucker fish, like, season, and it was equivalent to the opening day of dove season. And so these,
seriously,
yes, there was a boat, like, if you've ever watched videos or ever done it yourself, I've seen people, like, where they're bow fishing, and the boat has got a deck built on the front of it, and there's lights, and they're out there shooting the fish. Well, these folks are standing on top of the boat with gigs, and they're just gigging these hog sucker fish, and apparently they're kind of like equated to like eating buffalo, where they're not the best thing to eat. You got to cook them real fast.
Yeah.
But it was just like extremely interesting that hey, rural America,
Right.
Like, we're passionate, we love what we do, and
Well, we saw that too with Duck Dynasty, like how that obviously was a humorous show and all of this stuff, but how much it brought duck hunting into the spotlight. Now, duck hunting is a huge freaking thing to begin with, but I watched this thing that was talking about the percentage of people who were not duck hunters, would never have duck hunted before, and that became duck hunters because of that show, that after that, it was like it just amplified this thing. And you think about, that's just one show about one species here, with this waterfowl. Like, how many people are, watching back in the day, watching Bill Jordan outdoors here, and watching him deer hunt and all of this stuff, right? So all of those people are there. They're not saying anything, to your point, but when something happens, that's who you're going to awaken, and it's a powerful group, and it's an armed group. So I don't think we need to tick them off.
Yeah, absolutely. Stephen Leininger, really appreciate you coming on the program, sir, giving us invaluable information about the plight of the American farmer. It is a crisis, must be addressed, and I'll give you the last word, sir.
Yeah, well, no, hey, Paul, Rob, thank you for having me on. It's been an honor. Like I said, I respect and think a lot of the American farmer. Most of us come from farming families. It might be way back when. Some of it's just right there, we're all from that. And so it's what this country is built on. So I appreciate the platform.
I loved it when you were talking about sports and hunting and everything, because the show that was really interesting to hear your takes on that. And if people want more of that from you personally, I mean, you have a pretty entertaining Instagram account. Which account is it?
Yeah, so it's Life with Linebacker 08. So
Leininger is spelled or linebacker is spelled LEINBACKER 08. Life _with _linebacker 08.
Good gravy! What a complicated name, Stephen.
Yeah.
What are you doing, man?
Yeah, it was a Twitter handle when I was in high school.
I just want to show it right
Back
there,
to 08.
so people can see it
There you go.
right there. There it is, and
it
pop
just
it up on the
it
screen.
just caught.
Yeah,
and
it's
then
up
now
there.
there's
It's up there.
so many handles in the days. I'm on TikTok too now. I just recently started doing that, and talk about the difference between how stuff gets viewed on TikTok versus Instagram. Their algorithms.
Their algorithm's totally different.
I can post the same content like literally seconds apart, and it's just wild how it goes. But
One will take off on this one, and one will take off on this one.
Who told you to get the
Depends on
TikTok?
Paul Harold did it. and I followed his advice, and it was a good.
You're like,
Who told
China's
Paul?
infiltrating me.
Who told Paul to get the TikTok?
Rob Spencer.
That would be Rob.
You're welcome, Stephen.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate it.
Oh, man, that's great. All right, folks, that's all the time that we have. Reach out to your congressman or your senator. Tell them that something's got to happen with the farmers. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching.